Okay, back at the workbench trying to do some testing on some of the pieces that I have. Some of them have been sanded and cleaned up and painted black, but whether they actually work or not. So I need to go through and test a few different devices and see if they're going to work. I need to put the starter switch back together. I've cleaned it up and painted it. 2 starters and 2 generators, and see if during the process 2 years ago I actually cleaned up the generator, one of the generators and one of the starters, and see if those are actually going to work. I have another kind of rustier looking starter that I found in a box, and it doesn't have the Bendix gear and stuff on it, but whether it works or not. And I have another generator that I have that, it's not in bad looking shape, but it doesn't have the band on it to cover it. But whether it would actually work or not either. So I can get to testing some of these pieces of electrical equipment for the Model A. Okay, I just want to show the difference between a later model, later 28, 29, 30, 31 generator on a Model A. This is missing the cover, and you can see it's got a pulley up front here, and this is where the cutout would sit. And if you look inside here, this is the brush you move. See, I can just move it with my fingers. So if you want to change the amount of amperage that it's putting out, you turn on your lights and watch the amp meter to see if it's dipping below 0. Then you will get under here and move it back or forth until it's not discharging. If you're running, you don't run at nighttime, or probably if you're running these modern LED lights, it'll be less draw on them. So if you shut the lights off and see where the amp, you don't want it charging too much, and you can adjust this third brush is what they call it. You just can move it back and forth. There's a little spring in there that gives it tension, and you'd have to, if you have your cover on it, you'd have to take your cover off. So this is an original, and it would be sitting on the car. Let's see, something like that. So you'd have to reach under here to this section to get to that brush, with your cutout sitting on top, and the brush is right there in this opening. So that's the normal generator. And my dad's early 28. He's wanting to. This is what he's running now. But what he wants is a Powerhouse, and that's what this is a Powerhouse generator. And this one, it's sort of like plastic. They call it Bakelite, that holds the brushes. You have to take it apart and maybe try epoxying it, cleaning it up, or I don't know if I can get another Bakelite. But you can see it's different than this one. It's much larger round, and this one doesn't have a pulley on it right now. This one is the more common, which actually looks like the same generator up into the 60s, even though this is a 6-volt. But you can see this Powerhouse is much larger round, and this one needs to be rebuilt. Check the fields, maybe put new brushes on it, and this Bakelite needs to be, there's supposed to be a cover on the back here also, which is missing. So this is going to be an ongoing project to see if we can find the missing parts, repair this Bakelite, or if anybody sells them. If you know if anybody sells them, stick it in the comments. But I just wanted to show what a difference between the Powerhouse and the normal generator that is on most Model A's. And you know, this one's also missing the cutout that would be mounted up here. And this one is mounted right there. And gotta get a pulley for it too. Okay, let's talk generators now. So most of you are familiar probably with the generator. It looks like this, and these are 6-volt positive ground, and this is also 6-volt positive ground, but it's a Powerhouse. My dad has an early 28 coupe that he runs, and he actually has one of these more modern generators on it. But early on in production, Ford had these Powerhouse generators, and you know, they worked good, but they were more expensive to build. And he was able to get these functioning, you know, I think they're 20 amp or 30 amp, somewhere in there. They're not, you know, nowadays, most cars with air conditioning and power windows, you're looking at 100 amp, and you know, my Super Duty, I think, is 150, 200 amp alternator on it. And I know some people, they've swapped over to 6-volt alternators. You can get those at most of the Model A vendors, or you know, you can find them. And you know, the alternator is a little less work. It doesn't have the cutout. It has the built-in regulator in the diodes, and you can even get a 6-volt positive ground alternator, so the rest of your car would function normally. Or you can, you know, some people just go ahead and swap out the to a 12-volt battery and 12-volt coil and a 12-volt negative ground alternator, like, you know, one-wire GM alternator. The one thing you want to, you can run a 6-volt starter on 12 volts and it'll snap it right in there, but you can mess up your flywheel. You know, you could jam the starter, or, you know, eventually you would burn up that starter motor. But it could last, you know, years on running off a 12-volt battery. But you really should change the starter out to 12 volts also. And then you also have all your bulbs. Your horn has to be a 12 volt. So there's, you know, a lot involved with changing it over. But these are 6-volt positive ground. So this would have been on a early 28. And this one, I'm actually missing the pulley on it. And it has this little cover on the back. I'll just go ahead and show you the insides. Pop the cover off. There we go. So inside, similar setup. You have brushes. This is a, I think it's a 3-brush. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 brushes. And this one, the Bakelite has been broken, so it is non-functioning. And we gotta get this covered just right to pop that in there, pop that back in there. But you can see it's totally different than these others. So that one is gonna have to be future project build. But these, you can see there are also differences in these. This one has a short nose stub on the back side here, and this one's a little bit longer stub on it. So that not all this type Model A generators are the same. They mount in the same function, and I can even see on these two, the connector for the cutout is laid out differently. So this one, the cutouts here and the mounting screws are on this side of it, and on this one the power connection is on this end and the connection screws are over here. So these two are a little bit different in that way, but the main way you can tell them apart is this back side. This one, it has this end cap with a bushing in it. It actually has bearings in it, and out superseded the other. And the other thing this one has with the bushings is a little oil drip. So when it's in the car, it's something like that with the cutout sitting up here, and you put a little drop of oil in there once in a while and keep it lubed up, and it should last you a long time. But you can see the cutout and the power connection, where this one is a little bit different with the power connection towards the front of the, near the pulley. And it also has this little electrical connector tab here. I don't know if that's for ground or what that would have been for. Usually it's just grounded through the mount here. That's another thing on the starters or these. If you paint it up really nice, you still need to make a electrical contact. So you need to scrape a little bit of the paint off so the bolts make contact with the metal to metal. Because you'll run into that on the starters too, where it mounts to the flange on the bell housing. But if you got nice paint on the bell housing and nice paint in the starter, the paint won't allow electrical current to pass through. So you actually have to sand it back down to metal. So let's get to testing these. This is the one that came on the car, and this is another one I had. And so to test them, it's similar to the starter. It's just a DC motor. When it spins through the engine, it'll generate current. But when it's not connected to the engine, you could just connect power to it, and it should spin over like a motor. So if I connect power here, and just like the starter, it doesn't really matter positive and negative. So let's see what it does. She spins, a little squeaky, and it sounds like the bearings in it are either dry or are square, because you could hear a little roar to it. And it's this back one that's really doing it, but there's no there's no place to oil it or grease it. So this would probably work, but boy, that would drive you crazy, the squeaking. So it needs to be taken apart and at least check the bearings on it, and if not, replace the bearings. So let's try this one. Like I said, this one's got a different spot for the connectors, and that's strange. The one that, I don't know if it really makes any difference, but so there's my ground. Let's see what she does. Oh, nice and quiet. And I can move this third brush up and down. Seems to go slower the further you move it in the direction that it's spinning. So if you move it against the, like, I guess it would be counterclockwise, you can hear it spin faster. So that's interesting when you move that third brush. But that third brush, there, I'll take it apart and show you. That's this third, since I have the cover off on this one. This is the third brush, and it's sitting in the car, something like that. So front of the engine, turning the pulley, and you move this third brush up or down, and you just watch your amp meter. And normal driving without the headlights, you know, you want the amp meter just around 0 or just a little positive. Turn your headlights on. If you drive occasionally or often at night, you may need to crank this up to where it has, when the car's running, you turn your headlights on and you watch your amp meter. If it's going to the negative, it's actually discharging. So you need to adjust this third brush. You just take this band off. See, on this one, you can see it's just screwing a nut, and this tin band comes off. And then you just reach in there when it's running and move this up and down. And you can see it had 6 volts. This is actually, I just checked the voltage on it. It was like 7.1 volts, but you could just reach in there with your fingers. It's not going to shock you, you know, and you want to put the band back on to keep everything clean inside there. You can see the contacts, and this one's actually pretty clean. So I would actually run this one, and you know, it's quiet, so it sounds like it should. I like to put a little drag on it just to see under load. You know, when the motor is under load, sometimes it'll stall. But it sounds pretty good. So on this one, it actually has a little oiler cap back here, and I already put a drop of oil in there. And this is actually, you can see the on the back side here, there's a little felt pad that absorbs the oil as you drop it in there, and it keeps it lubricated. So you flip this little door open. If I can do it, there we go. Flip that door open and just put little machine oil like you put on a sewing machine, or a little bit of oil in there. You don't want super thick oil in there, but the felt keeps it from running everywhere, and it holds a little bit of oil over time. And there's no oiling at this end. I can hear just a little bit of squeak. I'm not sure if that's the brushes or if that's the this end. But yeah, those bolts are very close, but that's how it's designed. But there's no way to oil this end without having to take it all apart. So I may do another video of taking these apart and putting them together. But so as you can see, the prettiest ones aren't always the functioning ones. And on these generators, the ones with the oilers are the ones with the bearings. And if it squeaks, and it's going to need rebuilding. So just some stuff that you need to watch for is the pretty paint. You know, as other YouTuber says, the Craigslist rebuild. Psh, 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 psh. You know, you got to watch out for pretty paint. Doesn't make it function. You know, the chrome doesn't get you home. Well, paint doesn't make it either. So just keep an eye out for that and watch out for that stuff.